Next, we will have four keynote speakers that will be discussing different points of view of the Arctic. And first, we have Professor David Natcher, and he's actually one of the forefathers of our project, the ACAF project, and he has been working really long time with the Arctic climate change, adaptation, food security, and indigenous peoples issues. He's a professor at the Department of Agriculture and Agricultural and Resource Economics at the University of Saskatchewan, Canada. Hi, David. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Jana. Hi, everybody. I apologize I can't be there with you in person. For one, it wouldn't be 6 o'clock in the morning, but I hope I'm still able to give you a sense of some of the work that we're doing, even if presented remotely. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, hopefully everybody can see that. If not, Jana, please give me a heads up. Yeah, so in keeping with the theme of the workshop, collaboration, I thought I'd present some of the work that we're doing around water, energy, and food security in the Arctic. It's a Arctic Council supported project with a number of Arctic collaborators. But to provide a little bit of context, I suspect those who aren't from Canada aren't aware of the situation in the capital of Iqaluit in Nunavut. But back in September, community members began noticing the smell of petroleum products in their water supply, in their drinking water coming from sinks and showers. And after complaining to city managers for several weeks, the city did determine that there had been a petroleum leak into the city's water supply. Back in 1962, the wise decision was made to place the large diesel tanks that hold the city's energy resources right next to the water treatment facility. So it's not surprising that over 50 years, there have been a number of leaks, and most recently in September. And this leak tainted the entire city's water supply. Even after boiling and filtration, it's not safe to drink. This resulted in community members needing to go to a local river to fill water barrels and containers for drinking and cooking purposes. The military has been called in to provide filtration services for water, and shipments of bottled water are being sent daily to supplement the drinking needs of community members. And I raise this because this is not only an energy water issue, but it also has direct effects on food availability, food security, as this quote was recently noted in the national news. Even if they have access to healthy, affordable food, if they don't have clean water to wash their produce or to cook with, they're not able to cook healthy meals. So this situation has resulted in a number of surgeries being rescheduled or canceled, or patients sent to major centers in the South. It has also brought to light that in Iqaluit and other northern communities in the Canadian Arctic, there's essentially no opportunities for recycling. So the approximately 1 million bottles of water that's been shipped into the Iqaluit over the past month will at best end up in a landfill, but likely many of which will end up in the ocean. So I raise this because I know the topic today is around food security and adaptation, but I think it's short-sighted to think about Arctic food systems in isolation of other systems. So move the screen. So the situation in Iqaluit demonstrates that water, energy, food, as well as other health systems are inextricably linked. when one is affected negatively or positively, it will often have unforeseen consequences for other systems. And if we have any hope of achieving security in food systems or water or energy, they will likely have positive or potentially negative impacts on the other systems. And because of this, we need to think about these systems as complex systems, and requires an approach to managing these systems from a nexus perspective or an integrated perspective. Sorry. So this led to the development of a project that's supported by the Arctic Council Sustainable Development Working Group, along with the Nordic Council, who also provided funding. And the title of the project is Sustainable Development Goals in the Arctic, the Nexus between Water, Energy, and Food. And it involves a large network of collaborators. The Arctic Center at the University of Lapland is a key partner in the project, but also the High North Center, the Icelandic Arctic Cooperation Network, and the Arctic Research Center in Umeå. But also key indigenous organizations like the Aleut International Association, the Gwich'in Council, Inuit Council, as well as the Arctic Athabasca Council. So it involves a large network of really bright, committed folks who are really interested in this nexus approach to understanding WEF, or water, energy, food security. So to jump into the project, and I hope that provided a little bit of context for our thinking. This WEF project, it started in 2020, and it had a number of objectives. And I think this is an iterative process. And as we go, we learn how much we don't or don't know. But initially, the project set out to provide a repository for these WEF security data, a central location where people who are interested in working in this area of WEF security can turn to for national and regional WEF security data. We also want to develop an index for measuring progress towards achieving WEF security. And this would be at the regional, national, and pan-Arctic scales. We also, working really close with indigenous partners, wanted to develop a very explicit approach to measuring WEF security that took into account indigenous livelihoods and indigenous rights. Indigenous peoples have largely been neglected in sustainable development goals. And this project saw it as an opportunity to engage and integrate indigenous rights and livelihoods into this nexus type of research. We also wanted to provide something tangible, something that could be used by communities and governments to actually forecast or run scenarios about trade-offs and synergies in achieving WEF security, how one intervention might affect the other systems, either positively or negatively. And we wanted to advance this notion of systems thinking and get beyond the siloed approach to food security, water security, energy security, but think more holistically and integrated. And we wanted to do that through education, professional development, and through research. There's certainly not time to go into all the different methods that we're employing in this project, but these are a short list of the different things we're working on. These indigenous indicators, Arctic indicators. A lot of this is grounded in community case studies across the Arctic to understand how WEF security is experienced at the local levels. Doing basin and drainage assessments. We're very interested in transboundary issues. Here in Canada, we're very interested in what's going on in Alaska energy policies or commercial fisheries, and how that might affect the food security of Indigenous people, in particular here in Canada. Indigenous governance, and doing different types of multi-criteria analysis around specific project developments like road development or mining or Arctic shipping. I'll just go and show you some of the outputs from the project. And one of the first was to develop this Arctic water, energy, food nexus porthole. And this is a central location where data is being housed and it can be manipulated. And I'll show you that momentarily. And this porthole provides the the index scores for the Arctic states around their WEF security measures. It's based on 21 indicators. The website's about to go live in the next several weeks, but this is what we've developed to try to organize the information in an accessible, interactive way. And this is just some of the information that we've developed for Canada. And if you look at that very last pillar for Nunavut on your lower right-hand corner, you see that in terms of Nunavut's WEF security, they're ranked very low out of if it was treated as an individual nation, it would be ranked 124th globally in terms of their water, energy, and food security. And that's out of 170 different nations. And I could talk more about that if time allows later. This is some of just a visual of how we're thinking about Indigenous rights and livelihoods. So we're thinking about, positive interventions around renewable energy might be good for addressing sustainable development goals, but what impact would that have on Indigenous rights and livelihoods? For example, wind energy might be very good to transition away from fossil fuels, but how might that energy policies affect the rights of herding peoples or people who are using the landscape for other economic or cultural reasons? So trying to understand those trade-offs, those synergies of how water, energy, and food interventions can prove positive or negative for Indigenous livelihoods. This is just an output of the WEF security decision support tool that we wanted to provide through this project. And this is just one deliverable that we're working on. And this decision support tool allows communities and governments to access data that we house for Arctic, for those 21 indicators, or to incorporate their own water, energy, and food data to run various scenarios of how different interventions might have a integrated or a trade-off effect for other sectors. And it's a tool that will create different scenarios with varying resources, WEF resources. So you could calculate sustainability index. And these scenarios, as imperfect as they may be, are going to be ideally used to have decision makers think more about the integration and to get away from that siloed approach to water, energy, or food security. It's that nexus thinking that we argue is required if we're going to make any advancement towards kind of WEF security in the Arctic. This decision support tool is housed at the University of Saskatchewan, and for the foreseeable future will be managed and maintained by the Canadian Hub for Applied and Social Research. And it's open access that users can freely use to run these different scenarios based, again, on their data or data that we house. Part of the professional development and education stream is development of this open platform course. And this is being led by soon-to-be Dr. Martin Olson at the University of Faroe Islands. And Martin is developing this as part of his doctoral research. And it's an open access course that may be aligned with the University of Arctic. It may be delivered in other forms. But it's a single course that applies the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and WEF Nexus concept as basically theoretical foundations. We hope to integrate physical, biological, social, behavioral, economic, and engineering science to introduce students, public administrators, other decision makers to an ecosystem-based approach to kind of systems theory. Again, that kind of nexus thinking. This course will be very specific to the Arctic, and we hope to get a range of students who are interested. We're using it as a course here at the University of Saskatchewan next fall, and hopefully others will as well. This last slide I just wanted to present is, all of the information that I presented here and going forward is going to be made available through a Creative Commons license. And this means that users can freely share, they can copy, they can redistribute, they can adapt and remix the data and the tools that we developed. And the entire intention of this project is to provide a platform for others to build, to perfect, to think more creatively about how we could think about these systems in an integrated or Nexus approach. And one of the ways that we thought that we could facilitate that kind of pan-Arctic collaboration and intellectual development was through this Creative Commons licensing. And we hope that'll stimulate or motivate others to engage and develop this research more. So I think that is my last slide, and I hope time allows either now or at the end of the session for comments or questions. And again, I'm thrilled to be part of this, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. We do have time for a couple of questions, so if there is any, please. Yes, Aulikki.
Thank you very much, and thank you for a very interesting presentation. And this is exactly what, for example, the UN Food Systems Summit message is, that we have to think system-based. And one question, actually, I happen to work with FAO, and we had a seminar about this Nexus thinking, and in fact I found out that they have this kind of tool, exactly this water, energy, food tool, how to look at this on a country level. Of course, that was mainly for the developing countries and not especially for Arctic region, but I wonder if you have got some help also from FAO or their experiences. Thank you.
Yeah, it's thank you for your question. And yeah, the decision support tool has been, I think, particularly interesting. And I have to admit, as a cultural anthropologist, this is outside my specific skill set, if I have one. But one of the things that we were told early on is there's a number of WEF decision support tools, or these toolboxes. But what we heard from government administrators in Canada, as well as the Indigenous partners on the project, too often these toolboxes or these decision support tools require a level of technological capacity that often removes them from, makes them inaccessible to the end users. So what we're doing now and through spring and coming summer is to work very closely with the end users of the decision support tool to understand, well, how can they be made most accessible? How can they really capture the kind of the lived experience of people who are working in the Arctic and communities who it's being developed? And that's been very interesting for me to as someone who does research in kind of the transfer of technology. How can we make these technologies usable, accessible, and scalable for other regions in the Arctic? So that's one of our main objectives. And I don't think we're going to come up with a tool that tells you explicitly, if you make this type of intervention in food production, you can expect X, Y, and Z outcomes. But it's, I think we've reached a point where we understand that it's a conceptual device to get people thinking about these interactions, not what will happen, but what could happen. And I think if using that as a starting point, I think that'll be of value. Hopefully, down the road we could say, more definitively what these impacts will be. But again, I think the value of it right now will be this conceptual device to get decision makers, communities thinking about how interventions in their own locations, their own communities, what kind of ripple effects, spillover effects it might have on these others. And your reference to FAO or the UN, we thought quite a bit, and I've done some work with internationally with IFPRI and some of the other organizations who have applied these kind of nexus thinking to policy. And that was really informative to how we developed the WEF Nexus project. And, time doesn't allow for today, but we are including issues around gender and poverty, all the intersectionality of all these other issues that come into play when we start thinking about water, energy, and food security, and how various interventions might affect women differently in communities than men. So again, try to break down some of these siloed approaches to development. I mean, the challenges are profound. I mean, we've yet to really figure out how to address food security, let alone WEF security. So I'm not trying to belittle the challenges ahead, but I think it does demand more integrated thinking if we're going to be successful. So hope that answers the question.